Hello, interwebs. I'm Jason Barton, senior engineer here at Barron Studios. Today I'm here with
Roy Dale.
We're going to talk about Roy Dale's song Faces. Faces is a track off of his premiere album, All in a Day.
All in a Day.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's get it.
Let's go.
All right, Roy, the reason why I want to talk about Faces is a lot of people that don't live in the city of Houston have a misconception about what Houston artists sound like.
Right.
And we're going to get into the details a little bit more as we go through this, but typical Houston sound, I think, is everything screw.
Everything slowed. Everything.
Lazy raps, freestyles in the booth.
Over the constant, the same, like, samples, same snippets, same...
Maybe like 5 or 6 stacks on the verses and 20 on the hooks.
Right.
You know what I mean? Very, very loose sound. But what I see coming in here... and I feel like where the city is actually going and what people that don't live here would be surprised to know is that we're on like some 22nd century
next
shit.
wave.
Yeah, like we're light years ahead of that. And that's why I want to talk about Faces, because I think Faces, there's something about not just Faces, but a lot of tracks on your album though that I still feel are very respectful and give a shout out and a nod to the traditional things, but they but you're light years ahead of what anybody thinks goes on here.
Right.
Down to the instrumental, lyricism, and all that other stuff. So you ready? Let's get into it.
Let's go.
All right. The first thing, I just want to play the instrumental a little bit. One thing that I really liked about you was the fact that you're not scared to let the instrumental play a little while.
No, you got to let it breathe, because even though the reason why we picked it is because the way we record and the vocals would sound clear, sound good on this, you don't want to drown it. And it was such a good beat that we just wanted to let it actually bring the person in, bring you in.
Whenever you guys are picking beats, is that something that you are conscious of? Are you thinking like, hey, there's a lot going on in this beat that would be in the way of my voice? Or is that something you figured like we just hit up in the engineering part?
Well, I would like to say that I hold my lyrics really high because I write all of them. I would want to be heard.
Quinn Miller.
No, I want clarity more than anything, because I feel like that's what a lot of stuff is lacking. Nothing against like the whole Atlanta scene and where mumbling's cool sometimes, but I want people when they sing along, they don't want to look around at their friends like that's what he said, right? But yeah, clarity more than anything.
Let's listen to this a little bit. That's beautiful. All right, so ambient, airy. There's some vocal chops going on in there, and there's like a screw down vocal and a pitch up vocal, but that's not like a typical wood grain gripping, sipping sound.
No, we reached out to Jordan Lumley. We found one of his beats online and got in touch with him, and this is just, it had a real like gritty sound that you can just kind of go off of, but it's smooth at the same time. So it's really vibey, and that's what we really wanted to create with this. Like create
a lot of big bass, real bass heavy, like airy, but solid with the bass. Love it. Let me ask you this: when you're writing, or this song in particular, did you write the lyrics before you heard the beat, or did you get the beat and then write the lyrics?
It's funny because a lot of the songs that I've actually go through with, they weren't originally written for that, or I'll borrow a bar from like something that never got put down in the studio, something completely different flow. But a lot of the time, some of the bars in the songs, they're just constructed like over time. Like I'll think of something that sounds really cool, like "Cat in That Hat." I'm like, oh, okay, let me write that down real quick. And that's kind of how they build. We just build off of that, just off of one little phrase, and that can be the whole subject of the song, or it can just be one little punchline here and there. But the beat definitely influences the flow.
And is every song like that, or is there some where you just hear the beat and then you're like, it inspires you to write?
There's some where the beat just has its own vibe where it makes me kind of want to not necessarily come to that level, but just reach out of my comfort zone and try new things. And like we tried auto-tune for the first time the other day, and I was skeptical as hell, and it sounded good.
And at the end of the day,
Really
you're
good.
singing Heartless.
And at the end of the day, I'm 808s Kanye. But yeah, no. Right now, more than anything, just stepping out of our comfort zone, finding beats that kind of force you to grow, to leave that pattern that you're so comfortable with.
So, kind of breaking comfort zone, stuff like that. What are your thoughts on the sound of? Does Houston have a sound anymore? Do we have a sound? I mean, we're known for certain things, but do the artists that you work with here, that you know in the city, do we have an actual sound, or is it something that's developing?
To the untrained eye, Houston's sound was still tipping like 10 plus years ago. It's like this weird, like, nostalgic, like, early 2000s, late 90s with the Houston. And I think that's cool. And you've seen a lot of mainstream artists today kind of just not necessarily picking off of that, but definitely feeling it.
Well, from the screw sounds to everyone does coding now.
Everybody does coding. Everybody pours up. Everybody's pouring up for Pimp C. Everybody's, but there's no sound right now because we're still living off of that. Like everything else.
I mean, but that's kind of good. It's like the Wild West again.
Yeah, kind of martial law out there, but it also, I think it also sets another like step for artists from Houston to get over. It's either you sound like you're from Houston or you don't.
Do you think that some of that is because of maybe internet, people having more access to other regions of music? And I mean, I remember, this is going to show my age a little bit, but I remember when I started recording rappers, to get a beat, you had to know someone that lived close to you that did beats. Like you weren't just able to find a beat from somebody in the UK or anywhere else. And I mean, on this project, you've got beats from producers all over.
Yeah, we went all over the world.
I mean, and that's amazing to me. And what's funny is, I forget which song it was, but one of the beats you have has more of the screw stuff in it than anything, and the guy like lives
in like Connecticut or something. Like it's crazy. The internet has made things a lot easier access, and a lot of this. But the thing is, a lot of the sound before was very homegrown, very like, oh, I know this guy from the town over who has this Casio keyboard, Casio gang, and we're gonna link up and we're gonna do this, that, and the other. Well, now we got Carlos, my manager, FaceTiming with guys in Chicago, picking apart a beat that they made like 2 years ago, or just like building like, oh, we're gonna bump it down to this. I need you to take these vocals out, turn that snare down, and it's a lot more hands-on than we could ever be at the level that we're at, without having to fly out so-and-so from Japan. And, yeah.
Let's talk about what you said is really important to you as well, and that's the lyrics. Again, not dissing anything that's come before, but when I moved to Texas, my impression of Texas rappers was freestyles. I didn't know anyone actually like wrote. Like I thought every song was a freestyle. You know, a lot of stacks, very loose, and that was a sound.
Right.
But when we hear modern rap now, it's kind of in a minimal phase in general, and I think you kind of embrace that a little bit too. One thing I like about that, especially with your lyrics and with your verses, like I feel like a confidence.
Right.
The track is kind of flat and ambient and airy, and you just jump on this track with good energy. And I don't even want to talk about the other verse yet, but you brought in, like, as soon as you jump on this track, like you own it. From first verse on up, I don't think anyone, once they hear your voice, like no one's gonna stop it.
Right. Well, it was bouncy enough to create flows like that on it that were just really smooth. Because if you let it, the whole song could just be really dark and kind of low, but that contrast between just like really clear coming through, it just sounded really good. They balanced each other out.
Let's check out the second verse real quick.
Yeah. Don't fuck with a nigga like me. Never give a fuck if a nigga like me. Everybody wanna sign them a nigga like me, but they will never find them a nigga like me. I'm the new voice of the South. Nigga, I'm the new kid's choice of the South. Never been at the top, but a nigga feel good. Got my feet on the couch, my dick in the mouth. She's talking that shit, then I'm kicking her out. Still making faces, let a bitch power. Let me see amounts like every.
All right, so let's talk about that verse a little bit. But that's the energy that I'm talking about.
Right.
Like you own it. You own it. The beat's doing whatever it's going to do, and that beat could be interpreted a million different ways.
Right.
I feel like a lot of people would have heard that beat and been on some of the mumble rap kind of thing. You know what I mean? But you just got this energy on there. When you're talking about being the new voice of the South, what does that mean to you?
That means that I feel like I'm finally speaking up for the 2%ers who weren't just straight up SUC, Big Hawk. Like whenever they were coming up and they weren't raised by 97.9, like they had people to show them other music, and there's different appreciations for different styles, and I feel like I'm finally bringing that one to Houston, but saying like I'm still deeply rooted down here, and like I'll tip my hat and I'll give my compliments to the ones before, but I'll also try to usher in something new.
Well, and the walk of life that Big Hawk or Big Mo had, if a bunch of younger kids were still rapping about that stuff, but never came from where they came from or walked where they walked from, it would be weird and it would be inauthentic. You know what I mean? Like it would be something different, and that's why I think your voice is so fresh. Like, because people your age, younger, my age, like it's really a breath of fresh air when it comes through. Like I'm like, man, I can dig this. New York could dig this. California could dig this. It's not so much regional as it is just good hip hop, and it's good to hear good hip hop, good lyrics come through. Scarface, great storyteller. Some of the Big Tyke, some of the Swisher House stuff, like good storytelling, put you in moods and stuff like that. And that's what your songs do for me too. Is like the beat can be one mood, your lyrics can be another mood, and then I get an overall concept. And what's really neat is you can be lyrical and still be stunting, but I don't miss one or the other.
Right.
You find a way to do it real tasteful, and that's what I really enjoy about that.
Appreciate that.
Let me ask you a little bit, and I just know some background information about this, and I kind of want to get this out there too. When you're doing, when you're picking the beats and the music, what's the process for you like? Because this is kind of unique.
Right. Well, me and my manager Carlos will sit there for, like, right after that session when we finished what we've been working on, is back on the search for beats, and excuse me, we'll get in touch with producers that we've worked with before and stuff, and we'll get this plethora of beats just to go through and be like, okay, I'm feeling this. It's like process of elimination until we find like 2 or 3 that we just really can't go without doing. And it's not always that smooth. Sometimes I'll send something and then it's like, no. And sometimes Carlos will send something and it's really meeting in the middle. But as an artist, it's pushing me to just adapt to these new sounds and this new wave we're riding, like this new sound that we're building, us, and also trying not to stand still and just more in the middleness.
And I think that's really cool because a lot of artists would have a hard time jumping on a beat that they didn't pick out by themselves.
Right.
So I think that shows a lot of trust between you and Casio gang. And then again, I totally get what you guys are saying. Like that's how you get a sound.
Right.
And I'm glad that you guys are thinking on these other levels because you're gonna get these other sounds that no one else is getting.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a little bit about this. When one deliberate thing that, again, trying to set apart like a new sound, we don't do stacks.
No.
Very rarely do we do ad-libs. We're not verbing shit out. We're not going crazy delays everywhere. And I think that's cool because, again, the way you rap with that confidence, we're kind of embellishing that even with the mix. Going into this project, was that something conscious ahead of time, or is that what organically developed once we all started putting the tracks together and talking about it?
Well, I've been tampering around with music before, and it's funny because at the time, me and my friend didn't really know how to work GarageBand that well, or whatever little mixed craft we were working off of. So whenever we did try to stack, it would just sound funky. So I was just like, no. And I think that kind of, over time, subconsciously made me try to come across more clear, more broad. And it sounds better than ever. I mean, we'll put what we do on it, like a little compression, a little bit of reverb. But I just don't like to drown out what I'm actually saying. Like, I want people to hear it, unless it's an effect on a chorus, obviously, or something that calls for it, like a pause and an echo. But I feel like what a lot of people get nowadays is just a lot of just the Migos ad-libs. Nothing against Migos, but a lot of like the overbearing sound, like the coming down, like I got 10 dudes in my car yelling at me. When sometimes it's nice to just ride and just listen to, what somebody can actually spit in person. So
I mean, and that's what I like about the mix in general, is I feel like you were standing right in front of me just rapping. Like it comes out just like that, and that's a good sound. It's brave,
right?
It's really brave. Couple different sides of engineering where sometimes you embellish stuff with effects because there's a sound, and that sound is really important to it. But this stuff is really stripped down. Like we're being real minimal on here, and there's not a lot of times that I work where I'm like, one delay I feel like could fuck up the whole track or not. And almost every one of the songs on this album, I was like that. I was like, how does one delay stand out so like a sore thumb that bad on something? And I know like we would try stuff and go back from it, but I think it ended up being a real organic, like,
well, a majority
keep this as live sounding as possible.
And I like a lot of comfort where it's like, yeah, and look, and all right, like stuff like that. And I feel like the majority of the mixing process of recording is debating with all of us in here, like, all right, does this like belong here? Does this look, or can this be right here? But that's just how much detail is put into what we're doing. Like we could make a setup in our closet right now if we wanted to, and pump out these Slime Season 6, 7, 8, 9. Like we can do that, but
shout out Migos again.
Shout out Migos, Thug. Shout out all of them. But I like to take a little more time with my craft, and because no one wants the same thing, like the same mixtape about the same subject. Like there's new vibes, new towns, like new stuff that I'd never been to South by Southwest before, and that was when we were first recording, and just all this new, like, it's like being tossed into like a new school. Like, all right, these kids are up to here. Like you got to get
actually like this is not on any kind of outline notes or anything like that, but this is actually a really good thing to talk about. One of the most enjoyable things for me as an engineer, I remember our very, very first session was in the 713 studio here at Barron Studios.
Right.
And I remember Castiel Gang brought you in, and I listened to you, I was like, oh, he can rap. His voice sounds good, he can rap. But I got to watch you come from a point of being really new, and then by the time we finished the album, you've done South by Southwest, you've done shows, you're on tracks with some of your peers. You know, some people that have broke it really big and some people that are going to break it really big in the next few years. So, I mean, this whole project must have kind of been a little bit of a roller coaster ride for you. When you started it, when you said, "Hey, Castiel Gang, yeah, I will be signed by you, and we're gonna do this." Did you know it was gonna work like this? Did you know it was gonna happen this way? Did you expect it?
I always hoped for the best in the whole process, and just being that positive about everything, and knowing that we have a sound, and just for sure knowing that this is gonna work. Things have been moving faster than they've ever done before. Like, I went from having not a single song on SoundCloud or any kind of visuals out there, and so now we got promoters and people in Vermont, in Baltimore, saying, when you come, I'm getting VIP, I'm getting this, I'm getting that. And I mean, like, that's neat and everything, but it's nice to look around and look at old stuff that we have stashed away here and say that I was so uptight. Like, I was so, like, now I sound like a lot more relaxed, a lot more confident in what we're doing. And in the new songs for the next project, you can definitely tell the growth. It's not necessarily the same thing. We're just kind of testing waters the first time around, and now this is it. Like, I kind of gave you a broad overview, like you saw the index, and we're going into chapter 1. We're talking more about these streets. We're talking more about like the little bitty details, this, that, and that. It's like a movie preview. Like, you get to see why that part in the first movie happened, like what led up to that point, and just trying to make it as personal as I can.
I mean, a lot of artists might have 2-3 mixtapes come out before anybody knows who they are.
Right.
And you had people basically knocking on y'all's door about when is this coming out before it was even done.
Right.
And so I definitely felt a little bit, as an engineer, I felt a pressure to make sure it comes out representing you the right way.
Right.
I felt like, and I think Casio Gang, and I think you, like, we all felt communally that we weren't going to have this is the moment right here. There's not a second chance on this moment, and we got to build this platform, like, track by track. And that's something we kind of all talked about every time that we got together. Like, everybody could feel that it was going to do what it was going to do.
Right.
Speaking of that, let's get into the third verse here. Tell me a little bit about the third verse. Who's the feature on this track?
We have Dizzy Wright of Funk Volume on the third and final verse of this track. And we have some really, really good verses on this entire project, but I've never felt so, like, neck and neck. Or after I heard this song, I was just like, okay, like, I need to go home and rewrite. Like, I need to get, like, my bars up and stuff. And Dizzy's not really one of those over the top, like, in your face bar for bar for bar, but he kind of showed a different side in this song, and we got, probably, not to be biased, but we got one of the best Dizzy Wright verses.
Yeah, I love Dizzy Wright. I like everything that I've ever heard him do.
Right.
But I've never heard him. I felt like he brought a different kind of energy to this track.
Right.
That I haven't heard him do on anything else before. And so I think this stands out. And I think diehard fans of Dizzy Wright will listen to this verse and appreciate how I felt like he pushed it in a different envelope a little bit.
Right.
With the feature, how did you pick him for the feature? Did you know, like, hey, this is the one that I want him on? Like, what was the thought process behind that?
We had a whole different idea to have Dizzy on a completely different song, but we're all big fans of him, and it only seemed right that he was on the tape, the real first official Roy Dell Casio Gang tape. And because we listened to him, that's a sound, like, obviously an influential sound. But we had our plans for him for a completely different song, but whenever we finished this and we were looking around and we were just like, this Dizzy, there's only one way he can come at this song, and it's exactly how he did it, and it's probably one of the best decisions we made up to date.
That's a good choice. Let's check out Dizzy's verse real quick.
Cause I'm trying to come up with the greatest of right. Getting high so we can stay above them. Call me some hand, you can make it a double. I'm finna go get in some trouble tonight. A couple cities and a couple nights. Whoa. Real money, what we finna get. Pray to God I do not spend it quick. Gotta save a little for my kids. Tell these promoters to get me now before they have to stop paying me 50,000. Got the juice to shut the city down. Speak it all into existence, you niggas done seen it. Yeah, them Instagram pics where the marijuana be the greenest. Pretty ladies liking all my pictures with fans in my comments that think I'm a genius. I swear that I'm motivated. Even though I'm known, I'm in now. You can already tell I've been around. After I read the track and send the file. Wait. Shit is outrageous, getting on stages. I can see all of these faces. No jewelry sitting on top of my tap, but I swear to God, I feel I made it. Vegas put me on. Blessed cause I know that I could be gone. It's my year, man, I thought you know. These other rappers as good as gone. Too authentic, took off, never I'm off in it. Black whip, black rims, and it's all tinted. You ain't really playing in the game, dog, all scrimmage. I'ma go and spend it.
He just jumped on the track, like,
I ran away with it.
Like, he lit it up. But, and like I said, I like Dizzy a lot.
Right.
But this is your first project. Dizzy's put out some stuff. He's been on Funk Volume for what, 4 years now?
For a while now.
Freshman class, a lot of features, a lot of mixtape projects. Anything that Hobson or any of those guys done, like Dizzy Wright has held down almost all of their projects too. But in by no way did you get ate up on this track. Like you hold your own.
Right.
And again, that's not something you see a lot on someone's first track. The balls to get a feature like that anyway.
It was not necessarily risky, but it was the whole time like it was like edge of your seat kind of experience, because guys can honestly, they can just get their money's worth and give you back some throwaway verse that has nothing to do with the song, but he came back with the same faces, and like he catered to the actual song. You can tell that he listened to it.
Let's talk about that a little bit too.
Right.
The concept.
Right.
He kept a concept going.
He kept it going.
And the concept is almost subliminal in the song. After we talk about this for a second, like I want to listen to the hook too, because the hook really ties the concept together. But I think he got it.
Right.
You know, like this could be talking about stunning. It could be talking about all sorts of things. It could be talking about world-weary traveling, and both of you are flashing without being flashy
right.
on the song, and that's a trick, you know, into itself. And then as far as the recording quality, a lot of times, like you said, when we get these features, maybe there's a smoke alarm going on in the background. Maybe you hear something. Maybe you hear their friends talking. Maybe you hear a beat from another song in the headphone mix and they just sent you some other stuff. Like there's all sorts of horror stories that I'm sure you know about and stuff that I've seen before. But this was done really well. And one thing I hope you learn as an artist from the features that you've gotten and how lucky you were with the features on this project.
Right.
When you do a feature for someone, you know, your voice is your instrument.
Right.
And you owe your instrument and your voice and your craft. You owe it a certain amount of quality when you put it down and put it on there. And I hope that's something that this new Houston sound that we're talking about embraces a little bit more than like typical old Houston stuff.
Right.
There's a quality behind it. And it's not because I think the listener hears quality so much. It's the fact that if one thing I like about the Screwed Up Click stuff is how raw and how new it was from when it came out.
Right.
My problem with it, though, is some of the recordings and stuff are so bad that 20 years down the line, we're not going to be able to listen to it anymore. It's going to be the same thing as like when we try to listen to something from like the 30s or 40s now. Like we're listening like
right,
treble,
right.
And we're like, okay, I can't listen to the song because it sounds so different than the way we listen to music now.
Phone, yeah.
And if I was an artist and my voice was my instrument, I want it to be timeless. Like I want it to be something that can hold up no matter what. And when we think about artists like Pac and Biggie, legends in their own right, but even when you think about the recordings, if I'm out and someone drops Juicy or Hypnotized to this day, it sounds really good.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you still get it the way that it comes out, even though there's been all this time in between that. And so I also think that's something that we try to be real conscious of. Like, how do we be modern? How do we set ourselves up for the next? Like, stylistically, we could have tucked your verses in a little bit more, but we chose to let it be confident, chose to let it be forward, chose to let it be out,
right? Because
vocals are always getting louder. So I feel very confident. Like 2 years from now, we can still listen to it, and we're not gonna be like, man, we should have had Roy's verse pushed up. You know, like,
well, not like, and I feel like a lot of it just comes from people afraid to just letting their voice stand its own on a song. Like, I'm 21 years old, my voice is still cracking. If anybody was to talk to me and I tell them that I rap, they would never believe me. But not to pat myself on the back too hard, but everything that we've touched, everything, it's had its own like smooth, like the vocals just, they weren't laid on top. It's almost like they're kind of wrapped around it. Like everything sounded so good. Like it was airy when it needed to be. It was stern when it needed to be. There were the jokes, there were the laughing, and then it was come right back for the delivery. All the alliterations, nothing felt like it ever fell off beat. Like everything was fluid. Everything. Vocals, kids.
Vocals. Rappers, you need vocals. Let's I'm gonna play the end of Dizzy's verse again, and I just want to go into that hook, and then let's talk about this hook a little bit.
Authentic, took off, never I'm off in it. Black whip, black rims, and it's all tinted. You ain't really playing in the game, dog, go scrimmage. I'ma go and spend it. Go and spend it like everywhere we go, we making faces. Yeah. That's big bills, nigga. Nothing less than Franklin's. Everywhere we go, we making faces. Yeah. And I can see him hating, trying to pop, and trying to leave me brainless like.
Who's hating? Who's hating on you, Roy? That's like the Zane Lowe moment of everything.
Got a lot of haters. No, honestly, the whole, like, there's a reason why there's not necessarily too many mainstream Houston artists nowadays. Is because it's such a, I feel like, not necessarily like a selfish culture, but it's like a weird bubble. Like Houston is, it's really its own place. Like people say Texas could be its own country. It really is its own culture.
Absolutely.
Different language and stuff. And it's almost like Gladiator. Like you have to beat these lions. You have to show them that it's okay. It doesn't have to be a Sunday night screwed up, chopped up mix on 97.9. It doesn't have to be tucked in between Shibana Motors or whatever else, custom car show. Like, you can stray away from that, like be uncomfortable for a second, but this is something that you need to hear. And yeah.
That's great. And I want to also go through the first verse real quick.
Come fuck with a nigga like me. You can never get enough of a nigga like me. New nigga from the bottom of the map, but I still put it down like a vet to the game. Sure they wanna give me neck for some fame. That's how it is when you next in the game, yeah. What you expect from me, never handed to me, had to go and get it. All my niggas made some sacrifices, I ain't any different. Just a little gifted with a little drive to make a big difference. I ain't even seen a check, I'm trying to plan out how I'ma go and spend it. Like everywhere we go, we making faces. That's big bills, nigga. Nothing less than Franklin's. Everywhere we go, we making faces. And I can see him hating, trying to pop, and trying to leave me brainless like.
All right, guys, that's Faces with Roy Dale. Roy, thank you so much, man, for letting us put the track on the podcast. Thanks for winning the contest and doing the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having the interview with me. Like, I'm so glad it was you.
Well, I mean, I feel like you're just as much a part of it, too, with all the mixing and mastering. Jason gonna mix and master all this product. It's just been a real process, man, and it's been a pleasure recording all this here at Barron Studios for the opportunity.
Man, it's fun watching you develop and grow and become yourself. And from the very first time I heard you jump on a track, I was like, oh, this guy is like confident, like he's got it. And then I watched you morph into that as we went on, and I'm curious and also very excited just to see what your career does, what you do, and what kind of person you become. So, man, thank you so much for letting me be a part of that and letting Barron Studios be a part of that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man.
Good job, brother.
Appreciate it.
That stuff.
Good stuff.